They say the cruelest things are spoken in whispers, or when people think you're not listening. For me, it happened on a breezy spring evening in Boise, just as I was scraping the last of Margaret's meatloaf off my plate. She'd been gone almost 2 years, but I still cooked her recipe once a week, even though it never quite tasted the same without her touch. Before we dive into all of this, let us know in the comments where you're watching this video from. Connecting with viewers across the world is a huge source of inspiration for us. The phone rang just as I sat back in her old recliner. My knees cracked just like they always did, and I groaned into the worn leather that still held her scent. The caller ID lit up Emily. "Hey, Dad," she chirped. "How are you holding up?" Her voice still had that softness I remembered from when she was little, when she'd call me Daddy and run to meet me after work, dirt-smudged cheeks and jelly-stained fingers. Now she lived across town with her husband Scott, and I mostly saw her when something needed fixing. Still hearing her voice made my chest ache, a cocktail of love and loneliness. "I'm all right, sweetheart," I said. "Just finished dinner. Was about to catch the news." I didn't mention that it was leftovers from 3 days ago, or that I'd spent most of the evening staring at the picture of her mother on the mantel, the one taken at Crater Lake with Margaret squinting into the sun and smiling like she never had a care in the world. "You sure you're eating enough?" Emily asked. "Remember I showed you how to order groceries online?" "I'm eating fine," I replied gently. "Though, I did have a little scare yesterday. Left the burner on under the coffee pot. Caught it just in time." There was a pause. I could picture that little crease between her eyebrows, the one she inherited from her mother, appearing like a warning light. "Dad," she said carefully, "maybe we should talk about getting someone to check on you more regularly." I sighed. "Emily, I'm fine. Really. Even Scott said so the last time he was here." "Yeah, I know," she said, her tone tight. "Anyway, I should go. We've got dinner with some potential investors. I'll call you in a couple of days, okay?" "Of course," I said. "Love you. Love you too, Dad. Take care." Then came the rustle, the unmistakable sound of a phone dropped into a purse. I was about to hang up my end when I heard it. Their voices. Not distorted, not distant, just unguarded. "You see how bad he's getting Scott's voice? Cold, flat." Emily sighed. "Yeah, he left the burner on again yesterday." My breath caught. I didn't move. "It's time Scott continued. He's a danger to himself, Emily. And let's be honest, he's a burden. Burden." The word hit harder than I expected, like a slap from someone you love. "I know," Emily said. "I hate to say it, but he's not all there anymore. And with the market right now, we could get at least $890 for the house, maybe more." "Exactly," Scott said, sounding almost cheerful. "We can sell it, move him somewhere comfortable, and finally make the down payment on that place in the foothills." Emily laughed, actually laughed. "God, Scott. You should have heard him tonight. So thankful I called. He has no idea. No idea." The phone slipped from my hand, landing face down on the floor. I didn't move for a long time. The clock ticked steadily. The refrigerator hummed, and Margaret's picture on the mantel watched me with silent understanding. They were already spending my money, already planning where to send me. Like I was some old dresser they didn't want anymore, but didn't have the heart to toss in the garbage. I got up slowly and walked to the kitchen. My hands shook as I opened the drawer with old receipts, utility bills, and the original house deed. Everything Margaret and I had built was in this drawer, years of sacrifice, every scraped dollar, every splintered fingertip from laying floors and sanding cabinets. I remembered the words she'd whispered near the end. "Don't let them take advantage of you, Walter. You're too good. Promise me you'll take care of yourself." I had promised, and now it was time to finally keep that promise. If you're still watching, comment 1, so I know you're still with me. The next morning I woke up before sunrise, not because of habit, but because I couldn't sleep. Sleep had left the house along with trust. The silence that once comforted me now buzzed with betrayal. I brewed a pot of coffee the old-fashioned way, no fancy pods, just grounds a filter and a slow drip. The familiar scent did little to ease the weight in my chest. I stood at the window over the sink, watching the light creep across the backyard. The rose bush Margaret planted for our 30th anniversary was just beginning to bloom, pink petals opening like soft whispers. I didn't feel like a man in mourning anymore. I felt like a man on a mission. After breakfast, half a piece of toast I couldn't finish, I went straight to the bottom drawer of the hallway cabinet. That's where Margaret had always kept the essentials. It had been years since I'd opened it, but the folders were right where she'd left them. Bank statements, insurance documents, the original house deed from 1999, crisp, notarized, and bearing only two names, Walter and Margaret Pierce. Now, it was just mine. No co-signers, no liens, no shared titles, nothing Emily or Scott could touch. I stared at the paper, running my fingers over the raised seal. I remembered the day we signed it, how proud Margaret had looked, how certain we'd been this house would see us through retirement holidays, maybe even grandchildren running barefoot through the halls. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same place where Margaret once balanced grocery lists and college forms and made a list of everything that still belonged to me. The house, my savings, my name, my right to decide what happens next. I opened my address book, yes, a real one, with ink stains and curling corners, and flipped to N. I found the name Daniel Novak, attorney at law. Margaret and I had met him 3 years ago after her diagnosis. She'd insisted we speak to someone about our will, about the house, about the what-ifs. I'd resisted at first, but Margaret was never one to leave things undone. I called Daniel's office. A woman with a cheerful voice answered. "Good morning, Novak Law Group. This is Tina." "Yes, hello. My name is Walter Pierce. I'd like to schedule a consultation with Mr. Novak. We've met before a few years back." "Oh, Mr. Pierce, of course." "I remember you and Mrs. Pierce. I'm very sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I said. "I need to speak to him about something sensitive. It's about my property. Is he available today?" There was a pause as she checked the calendar. "We can fit you in at 2 p.m. Does that work?" It does. I arrived at the law office half an hour early, dressed in the same blazer I wore to Margaret's memorial. It still smelled faintly of cedar and mothballs. The office was quiet, tasteful framed diplomas on the walls, a coat rack by the door, a coffee station in the corner. I declined the coffee. My stomach had been churning since the night before. Daniel came out personally to greet me, still trim with neatly combed gray hair and a handshake that felt steady and sincere. "Mr. Pierce," he said, "please come in." His office was just as I remembered, tidy but lived in, with a small photo of his golden retriever beside a stack of legal texts. "I wish it were under better circumstances," he said gently as I sat down. "It's not a legal emergency," I said, "but it is personal and urgent." I pulled the deed from my briefcase along with a manila folder filled with documents, home appraisal from 3 years ago, utility bills, Margaret's death certificate. Daniel took his time reading everything. "I overheard a phone call yesterday," I said, finally. "My daughter and her husband. They think I'm senile. They're planning to put me in a care facility and sell the house." Daniel looked up, his expression unreadable. "But they can't, can they? Not legally." He shook his head. "No, sir. You're the sole owner. You're mentally competent." "Unless you've signed a power of attorney." "I haven't," I said quickly. "Then they have no legal claim. They cannot sell your house. They cannot force you into a nursing home. Everything you own is still yours to decide." I exhaled slow and heavy, as if I'd been holding my breath for days. What would it take, I asked, to sell the house before they get back? Daniel raised an eyebrow. You're serious? I've never been more serious. He nodded. The Boise market is strong right now. Homes in your neighborhood are in demand. With the right buyer, we could close in as little as 10 days, especially if you're willing to sell to a cash investor. I'm willing. Daniel took a few notes. You'd need a real estate agent, someone who specializes in quick sales. I know a guy, Jason McKay, young, ambitious, and discreet. Would you like me to call him? I nodded. Please. Do you have a new place in mind? He asked. Not yet, I said. But I'll find something. Something simple. I don't need much. We spent another 30 minutes going over next steps. Daniel explained the sale process, title, transfer timeline. He was patient, never patronizing, the kind of man who still believed in doing things the right way, no shortcuts. By the time I left his office, the sun had broken through the gray spring clouds. I stood on the sidewalk outside, watching cars roll past, people going about their lives, unaware of the storm brewing inside one old man. But I wasn't just some old man anymore. I was Walter Pierce, husband, father, builder. And now I was going to become something else entirely. The man who didn't go down quietly. If you're still watching, comment 1, so I know you're still with me. I didn't expect Jason McKay to look like someone from a real estate billboard. But he did, clean-cut, early 40s, sharp gray suit that probably cost more than my first car. He pulled up to my driveway right on time, stepped out of a gleaming white SUV, and offered a firm handshake like he meant it. Mr. Pierce, Jason McKay. Daniel Novak said you might be in need of quick service. I studied him a moment. Confident but not cocky. Eyes that looked directly into mine. I nodded once. Come on in. We stepped inside the house I had built 20 years ago with my own hands. I watched Jason take it in the hardwood floors, the crown molding the custom shelving I'd installed, after Margaret saw something similar in a magazine. Wow, he said softly. You weren't kidding when you said you maintained it. Did you do all this work yourself? I was a civil engineer, I said, a little more gruffly than I intended. Didn't see much sense in paying others to do what I could. Jason grinned, flipping open his leather portfolio. Well, buyers love original owners, especially when the home shows this level of craftsmanship. He moved from room to room with practiced grace, taking notes, snapping photos with his phone, opening closet doors, and peeking behind curtains. But he did it with respect, no rush, no patronizing comments. We paused in the kitchen. Jason ran his hand along the granite countertop. Margaret had chosen speckled gray with veins of gold. This is solid stuff, he said. Looks almost new. I installed it over 3 weekends, I said. Did the plumbing too. Jason looked up, thoughtful. There's a warmth to this house, like it was lived in by people who cared. That's rare. I didn't say anything. My throat had tightened unexpectedly. We walked to the bay window in the living room. Afternoon light streamed through it, illuminating the dust particles hanging in the air like stars. Margaret used to sit there with a book and a blanket, her tea mug balanced on the sill. She loved that window, I murmured. Jason followed my gaze. You can feel that. The story of this home is in the details. Buyers won't just see value, they'll feel connection. I almost smiled. For the first time in days, I felt like someone was seeing what I saw, not just a house, but a history. We sat down at the kitchen table, Margaret's favorite spot, to balance her checkbook, and got down to business. I've run comps, Jason said, pulling up listings on his tablet. Similar homes in Cherry Hill, 3-bed, 2.5-bath, custom work like this, have been closing between $850 and $920. He swiped through photos of homes I recognized from the neighborhood. Most looked nothing like mine, generic, flipped, staged within an inch of their soul. Yours, he said, has something better integrity. It shows. My suggestion